either watching or listening to The Climb, produced by the Digital Mastermind. My name is John Sarakis, and we have a fantastic show today. Our guest is a consultant, a growth agency expert, and just an all-around fun person to talk to. Before we get into all that, Dave, why don't you come out here?
Hey, how's it going?
Going pretty good. So our guest was from England, and if I recall, you actually spent some time there.
Well, I worked for a company that was based out of Reading, England, and yeah, interesting company. I mean, interesting culture. You know, no man, and I think I've said this before on the podcast. No manager was American, even in the American office. They would not promote an American. It had to be from England, and they would ship them over, and then they'd manage us, and it was morale killer. I mean, it wasn't the way to manage Americans, and that's why I didn't stay very long. But I did get invited over there to be a member on a 10-man team of just like their brightest people from around their companies to help design the future forward. And my contribution was we redesigned all the UIs for all their products based on my designs because their software was old and shit, and they needed new freshness. So that was fun.
So you made that cut. I know someone close to me. Actually, I don't want to mention their name, but they work for a very large German company, and they were always wondering, like, man, why am I always getting promoted? Like, he would always get promoted like every quarter, and he has a German last name.
That is like Hemlich. He's getting promoted.
Yeah, they're like looking and like, this guy sounds smart, you know.
Yeah.
And now he's pretty high up at this company, enough so that I don't want to mention his name. But there might be some truth to that. Our guest, though, who again, it was a fun conversation. I would not ascribe to any of that, right? He was a former CPA, which we get into his climate, and he looks at things a lot from what I would think are both hemispheres. And along those lines, I mean, growing your agency has been a topic that we've been talking about quite some bit. But is that something, and this is a question for you, right? If you want something bad enough, and even if you're getting it, can you ever have too much of it?
You can, right? You can grow yourself out of business. That's saying
you're growing healthily, though, right?
Correct. But you could get too much growth in a spurt, and if you don't schedule that out or slow it down, I mean, you're going to hurt yourself. I mean, I don't want to say too much.
It's almost too much ice cream viewpoint of it.
Correct, right? That's a really good way to put it. You could end up with a tummy ache.
The landlord in this building, I ran into him a few days ago. I was like, "Hey, man, you look great." I was like, "What have you been doing? Working out, exercising, doing something?" He's like, "No, I was eating a tub of ice cream every night. I just stopped doing that."
I mean, if you include growth with all the other things that come with it, healthy recruiting, healthy implementation schedule, healthy account management growth, and like if you package it all up and say, yeah, everything grows together, then sure, that's great. I mean, I think everybody would want that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to look at it, right? That's the perspective you should have. Just because you're getting a bunch of money in the door, that doesn't mean growth. Growth should be your leadership team. Growth should be every team member you have. Growth should be your processes, everything across the board. That's growth, right? Because you wouldn't consider it growth if you, as a kid growing up, you're like, yeah, my right leg is really long, but my left leg just hasn't kept up.
Right. And on that point, we were just recently, recorded a podcast on another show based on their schedule. It's going to be out in 4 months. But, we talked about our process document, and that is what manages our growth and helps us, create the guide rails. And weren't you just telling me some interesting little quote about or somebody told me, guide rails are before the end because if they were outside, then you'd have already fallen off. Was that you?
No, but I like that quote.
Yeah. So, yeah, somebody told me. I think it was like on the company party trip, which also we just
drank a lot, so I may have said that then.
Yeah. But yeah, company summer social videos out, posted on LinkedIn is awesome. It's very morale building when we pull off an event that went so well that everyone liked. And it's a way to give back to our team and say, look, this is how we want to develop and reward you. So kind of ties into Robert's themes, but yeah, we want to build and grow leaders.
Yeah, a good time is something not enough people commit to having, whether it's just workaholics that burn themselves out or companies not getting everybody together. And it's an important moment to break bread, clink some glasses together and just really spend time. And that's just a fantastic thing to do. And that's the big takeaway, that we need to do more of that. And we did a really good job at doing that.
So one of the thoughts I thought about all weekend as I thought about this stuff, and it ties into this episode, is I don't ever want to be a company that I'm no longer interested in getting to know our lowest employee or, our lowest level employee. Because I kind of thought about like Publix, or big corporations. Like, how do they pull off events like we did that makes people on their team feel special? Like they're, producers of something bigger, that they're part of something bigger. How do you do that when you have 1,000 employees? I don't think you can.
A certain level of humility, though, and not creating that celebrity status, which I think some people's egos just cry for, where they just want to be on stage the whole time, and the Jamie Dimon, where they have their own elevator and then they're escorted off in a helicopter. You lose the humanization that's necessary for a company, because at the end of the day, what is a company? It's a collection of people doing something together.
So I almost think our biggest takeaway from that is hire and build your team as if you're going to be stuck on a boat with them for 3 hours. Right?
Some of that dancing. Yeah, you might be right.
I mean, if you're got to be stuck with them on a boat for 3 hours, are you going to enjoy that? If not, they're not supposed to be on your team.
Yeah. And if you're going to choose a boat, make sure it's a catamaran, because most people don't get sick on a catamaran.
It was a smooth ride. I mean, there was a little time that was a little bumpy, but yeah, great time. Just what a great event. Just highly recommend.
Another takeaway: if you're not the captain of the boat, don't dress like the captain of the boat, because you will offend the captain of the boat.
Yes, you seriously got his eye.
All right. Anything else we need to touch on before we introduce this fantastic guest?
No, other than I wasn't able to make this episode. This was Jon one-on-one. Solid interview.
Well, thank you so much. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce Robert Craven. And if you can, go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, rate, do whatever you want with the show. And if you're interested in joining the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email, Jon, Jon, at digitalmastermind.com. Thank you so much and enjoy. Robert, thank you so much for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today.
All right. So I'd like to start out with your climb. How did you get here?
Whoa. That is a question. So Daddy said, go to university and become an accountant. And I realized that on the day one that was the most dumb idea that ever came across. So coming out of university, before I even left university, I'd set up a cafe and a restaurant. And that's how I left university. Then I ran a sound recording studio. Then I fell into consulting and helping other people run their businesses. And then around about millennium time, I got together with a guy and we were running a digital agency with about 25, 30 people in Bangalore. And then consulting continued to be with different digital agencies. And then about 2015, we realized that all our consulting was digital agencies, and we kind of went all in and created the guide, Grow Your Digital Agency Initiative. I wrote the book, Grow Your Digital Agency Initiative, Grow Your Digital Agency, sorry. And the last 6 years, we've been working with digital agency owner founders, helping them run the agency they want to run, and doing a lot of that with programs with Google across some 22 odd countries.
Right on. So how'd you get into the digital agency business yourself? That's an interesting path. You fell into it?
Yeah, I fell into it. I had a really good mate who was running a marketing agency, which became, at that time became a digital marketing agency, because he saw the real opportunity from web build. We were doing websites for like $50,000, and The world was so simple then, you know, and you could literally go to, you're a lawyer, do you want to know what number, how you rank in the lawyers' websites? Because most lawyers haven't got websites. So it's so easy, educate and sell. And then at the same time, I was doing loads of consulting, restaurants. We were doing cocktail bars. We were doing software companies. And then as we went through the 2010s, nearly all the work was with professional service firms, lawyers, accountants, marketing firms. And then before we knew it, it was all digital agencies. And it's younger, it's faster. It's measurable, you know, all the stuff, and we just found a niche, and I think the niche thing is really important, you know, because I wrote 2 books around about 2015-16, Grow Your Digital Agency, around about 30,000 copies. There's only 40,000 agencies in the UK, so that's pretty much everyone's got a copy of it. And we wrote another book called Check-in Journal, which was general, same stuff. Where are you now? Where are you going? How are you going to get there? What are the steps on the way? What are you going to do? What are you going to measure? Same stuff, but bigger, posher, well posh, really high stuff. But because it was a generalist book, competing with Tony Robbins, competing with Stephen Covey, it kind of went nowhere. It maybe sold 3,000 copies. So niche became obvious just as a commercial piece, but also it was a niche that I enjoyed and relished and got on it, and where we were making tremendous impact. So it became a kind of no-brainer to let the legacy clients disappear and focus down on digital agencies.
Is that something that you preach to your agencies about niching down? I think
I know what the next question is going to be after. So yes, absolutely, niche in product or niche in service, but also beware that if you niche or niche, if you niche on travel industry, beware if COVID comes along. So you know, you've got to be careful, I think. But I think that I'm seeing agencies which niche in 2 or 3 different ways. So it might be professional services or lawyers, and then it might either be full service, which is a niche in a way for lawyers, or it might just be PPC. So they're kind of doing a little grid and figuring out a profile of client, but also figuring out an offering. So, you know, and then I also know people who did niche in travel industry who did really well in COVID because they were high enough up the food chain that they were able to sell into airlines and so on and so forth. So just because you niche in an industry which appears to be dying doesn't mean that your agency has to die. I think there's a piece about kind of reinventing yourself.
Yeah. So you recommend either vertical, horizontal, doesn't matter, but just find a tribe to sell to.
I think the thing is that you know more about them than they do as soon as you start niching. So if you focus on dentists, you know what every dentist wants to know is how much is everyone else charging, how many clients do they do, how much time do they spend, you know, what is their margin. And if you're going around all the dentists, you know all that stuff. If you're going around lawyers, you can say to a lawyer, how much does it cost you to win a client? Oh, you don't know that. Did you know on average it's about $670? So I've looked at your balance sheet and your P&L account because I've taken it down from the government, and I can see that you've got how many clients? Okay, so I can see that's costing you $1,200. That's your marketing spend divided by the number of clients you want, and I can get it to you for $700. Are you interested? So I think you just end up knowing more about it. So I find that so we do quite a lot of independent private benchmarking stuff, not public, because I think public benchmarking is kind of ends up being vanity. But to say, you know, we've been through agencies like yours, and these are the numbers they should be doing, but you're doing that. So let's unpick why that is. It could be that you're not focusing on profit, but you're focusing on sales growth, or it could be that you're focusing on, so whatever it is. But I think there's just an interesting piece around being a large fish in a small fish pond. And of course, the beauty is that once you've nailed one niche, you can move on to do the next. So if you've done lawyers, the next thing you can do is accountants. And if you've done accountants, the next thing you can do is architects, because they're similar. They've got similar issues. They're all selling hot air. They're all very proud of what they do. It's a service, so nothing is stored.
I'm very fond of them.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I think the niche thing is great, and you could actually replicate that if you so wish, or you can replicate into different countries. So you've got some choice.
Do you work with agencies that completely resist that and don't take on that and still are potentially successful, or is that kind of?
Let me rephrase. I'll talk to agencies who don't. I think what I find is you look at agencies, you see them in year one, and they go, "Oh my God, we're a pure PPC agency. In 2 years' time, we're going to be dinosaurs because we're just not going to be able to survive. So we need to find a way of doing some other stuff, and then we need to head towards becoming more full service. And then you discover once they've done that, they go, "Oh my God, we're jacks of all trades, master of none. We need to specialize in something." And then they pull back. But the issue that agencies often have is that they're not able to. In other industries, you can plug in a new product or a new service, and they can almost move straight into it, plug and play. Whereas with agencies, they find it really quite hard. So if you go to a pure PPC agency and say, "You ought to be doing YouTube, you ought to be doing YouTube advertising," they're going, hang on, don't quite understand how that works because it's different from what we do. And you say, well, it is, but it isn't. I mean, okay, you can't offer quite the attribution, you can't market it in quite the same way, but it's a real opportunity, and it gives you more breadth and depth, and actually it's really good for the client. And in any case, the client's probably going to ask you for it, so why don't you do it before the client goes somewhere else? And their reply is, "I'm a car driver, and now you're asking me to drive a motorbike, and you're saying a motorbike's more fun, but I'm a car driver, and I'm really happy driving my car." And you go, "Yeah, I kind of get that, but there are other ways of." So I think it's.
I have a theory there.
Go on.
Why that is. I think it's because we're the abused spouse in the relationship of technology. We're at the behest of algorithms, right? So that change is automatically going to come, and they're already fearful of it. So why would they then take on this by choice to learn something new, to figure out those nuances, and then potentially be at the behest of another?
Well, why would they? I mean, I agree, and we've recently done a bit of work about why have some people lent into YouTube advertising and some people haven't. And it comes down to that usual, strategy determines structure, determines culture, and culture determines strategy. So you build an agency around PPC, and your culture's around PPC, and your strategy's around PPC. So you do more PPC.
Oh, I like this. This isn't something we've ever talked about before. This is
strategy. I only learned 2 things at business school, and that was one of them. Very expensive. So that's $25,000 worth of value I've just given you there. So strategy, how you think about stuff, determines structure, which is the shape and how you go about delivering it, and your structure determines your culture, how you relate to people and get on, and that determines your strategy. So you just get this kind of loop going on.
God,
and what we discovered was that the agencies that lent in and were successful with video had a different mindset. They had this, I mean, they call it the growth mindset, but that's literally, we recently ran a program with 30 or 40 agencies, taking them into YouTube advertising. And the ones who were successful had a different mindset, to risk. In other words, let's lean in. It's like fire, ready, aim. Let's just see what happens. I know there's something there, but I don't quite understand what it is. But let's just get out there, stand in front of clients, sell the stuff, fit it together, maybe put in some hacks, learn about it, and then we'll move on. Whereas the others were going, attribution's really difficult. How do you market it? How do you sell it? How do you make it? What, isn't it cannibalizing what we're doing? How are my people? They just found a lot of the problems, and I think that's probably quite common. But I think that certainly on the performance end, it's been the same for a number of years. I mean, okay, so 5 years ago, Google was the only gig in town, and slowly some other guys and girls have come in, and we've had to kind of adjust what we learned with Google for Facebook and for LinkedIn and for Bing. So we've had to kind of rethink, but they've just been like slight changes, if you know what I mean. It's just been Whereas now, especially post-COVID, because in COVID, clients are saying, I know you do what you do, but now I'd like you to help me with my real issue, which is the same issue as it always was, which is how do you get me more customers? And I think the answer to that might be an email marketing campaign, or it might be telesales, or it might be a web redesign, or it might be a brand refresh. And a number of agencies who are in their niche and they will say, no, we don't. The computer says, no, we don't do that. And again, the agencies that I saw that were really successful through COVID were the ones who are saying, okay, we need to do something different here, because clearly what we did isn't working.
Adapt or die.
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example. An agency who was dying, and they had that thing. We all had it with agency folk. They lost 95% of their business in one day. They answered the phone 5 times, and every time it was, we're out, we're off. And this agency had one request and then another request to do podcasts. So they thought, okay, that's interesting. So let's think, $25,000 fee. We'll set up the studio. We'll train you how to do train you how to do the video, train you how to do the editing, train you how to upload it, train you $25,000, and then a retainer of $2,000 a month. And they had, like, in the first 2 weeks, they got 5 people wanting to do it. And then in the next 2 weeks, they had 10 people. And it became a new business. And it went from, we'll do this while we wait for the agency to pick up again, to it's a new business. And I think that, it's our definition of entrepreneur, is most people have one great entrepreneurial idea. I'm going to run an agency. Yeah. And then from then on, they've bought themselves a job for life. Yep. They don't realize that now they're dependent on staff, they're dependent on customers, they're dependent on everyone, and whereas the entrepreneur, like a noun, is someone who is always looking for opportunities where they can bring together resources to make stuff happen. And I think it's that difference, that having that entrepreneurial mindset.
Well, I think there's some that it's that they try to do too many things, right? And then
silver
shiny thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I could catch myself in that, and I think that's good balances in partnerships and just in relationships, right? Because if you're too risk averse, then you're gonna die, right? Granted, pain's a hell of a motivator, and maybe some of those people do that. But yeah, I think, of course, if you're too shiny, you spread yourself entirely too thin. So where would you see as a perfect balance? Is that something that you've seen in agencies?
I think what happens is, I'm not going to answer that question. I think I'll try to. But I think what happens is as you get bigger, you become more conservative.
Yeah.
So when you're 5 people, you're willing to hustle, do stuff, see what goes on. But when you've got 50 staff and you've got your big BMW and you've got your house and you've got your house in the countryside, you've got too much to lose. So I think that you become more risk averse. Many people, I'll rephrase it, many people become more risk averse the more they grow their business. And so the risk reward about doubling headcount totally changes, because you've got far more to lose than when you've got 5 people, because you just brush yourself down, start again. And if you've got 5 people and you end up working on your own, you'll still make $100,000 just as a freelancer. So you're okay.
Yeah.
Whereas when you've got the mortgage and the business loans, and then I think it's different. So I think we become more risk averse as we become, inverted commas, wealthier, most of us. And I can't remember what the question was, because I knew I was going to riff away from it. So
No, I like the track that you're taking.
Yeah.
and you are answering it whether you know it or not. Where where is the balance between being risk averse and being too risky?
Okay, good. So I don't. So people say, for instance, Richard Branson is an entrepreneur. He's a risk taker. He's not a risk taker. He's a calculated risk taker. So he looks at the opportunity, weighs up the downside, weighs up the upside, does the sums, does the math, and if he feels there's an opportunity there, he does the research and he does his feasibility study, for want of a better phrase. So he does it in steps. And I think the kind of stereotype of the entrepreneur is this kind of swashbuckling Errol Flynn kind of character who just goes in. It's not like that. There's too much money involved. There's too much risk. So I think the way in which especially TV portrays the entrepreneur is on the whole not accurate. It's my money, so I'm going to make sure that I've done at least some research to make sure it may or may not work. And of course, with the internet, it's so incredibly easy to float an idea and see whether you get any responses or not. So the good agencies need to have that. I would call it being strategic, having their head, their radar up, looking for new opportunities about stuff, but that they don't jump onto every single. Oh my God, it's TikTok. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And it's just getting that balance. And I know, especially in digital world, there's some new shiny object, and there's this big argument about getting first mover advantage and so on and so forth. So I think you kind of do two things. You have your scouts going out checking stuff out. You weigh up the risk, and then you decide whether you're going to go in for it or not. And my point really is that the larger you are, the less entrepreneurial you are. It shouldn't necessarily be so, because as you get larger, you should be more used to having new products and new services in a kind of plug and play way. So you should be able to do it. But the culture, and the viewpoint kind of gets entrenched.
It wears down employees, right? So let's say that you keep taking on all these new things. If your culture isn't innovative, which seems like that was a part of the zeitgeist, everybody like, you have to innovate, for about 5 years ago. But yeah, I can just think of teammates. If you're throwing on TikTok, if you're throwing on all these new things, they're going to be completely outside of their element. They're not entrepreneurs. They're looking for processes and systems so they can be successful. Yeah,
and that's the point about the difference between a leader and a manager, and how do that takes you on to that question about how do you create a great team? What is a great team that you actually develop as a CEO of an agency? And that's clearly you don't want them to be too entrepreneurial, because you don't want them to go off with your a list of all your clients on a stick and disappear. That's just too entrepreneurial. But on the other hand, you do want them to look for opportunities, help you gather together resources to make stuff happen. And clearly you want a safe pair of hands, and clearly you want. But to your point, every time you add in a new angle, you're watering down the original culture. So if originally we're all about designing beautiful websites, and now we're about designing beautiful websites and doing PPC, and now we're about designing beautiful websites and doing PPC and SEO, and now we do video. Now you kind of, the whole thing kind of loses focus, and you can see that in these 200, 300 person agencies that go around buying other agencies. So they buy a comic strip designer, and they buy a graphics designer, and they buy a cartoon maker, and they buy a CRO agency.
Some master plan.
Push them all together. Yeah. But there's every one of those agencies has got a different culture and a different way of doing stuff. And secondly, the original mothership, I've seen this loads of times. It's like, this isn't who we are anymore. Not only do we not know everyone, but this is not what I signed up for. I signed up for something different.
Yeah, it sounds like, and we've seen that with some agencies where they're going to cobble a lot of others together to increase their multiplier based
Yep.
on revenue.
Well, that's it, isn't it? That's exactly it, because the game is not we're here to deliver awesome work to awesome people and have a lot of fun doing it. The game is us five at the top. You know, every time we add another agency in, the multiplier goes up by half.
Right.
And so if we get 10 new agencies in, our multiplier got up by 5. Our valuation will be wonderful, and we can retire, and we'll leave everyone else behind them. And I think you see that when the large consultancies come in and they buy out. You know, I mean, it happens everywhere. You know,
It does in all industries.
Ben & Jerry's, whatever it is,
to make a ship.
Yeah, the money gets them. We'll never sell out. We'd never do anything like that.
So you wrote the book on growing agencies, right? What is the title of the book again? I'm sorry.
Grow Your Digital Agency.
Grow Your Digital Agency. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. We'll call it a soft plug on my end. But so grow your digital agency. Other than niching, what do you recommend that somebody does to grow their digital agency, and who is the perfect fit? Who are you speaking to in the book? Is it the agency that's at 200,000 in revenue?
Yeah. So so the perfect fit's a guy called Joe, and he's got about 15 people, and he's hugely bright. You know, he's got his brains are like that, and you can see someone ripping him off from a mile away. His wife still does the accounts, and he's grown the business because he's really good with people and really clear and focused. He's a bright bunny, and at 15 is a ceiling. I mean, there is a ceiling at 5, 15, 25, 45, 65 roughly, where it goes from like baby to infant to young adolescent to old adolescent. And each time you go through that next phase, your feet or your hands are too big, but the rest of you isn't, and you're catching up. And that happens with agencies that and it's normally when you take on non-fee earners. At 15, you're about to take on your first bookkeeper or your first marketing person. They don't, you get an extra person on the wage bill, and you don't make any more money. How does that work? So your profit goes down. And you can see these pinch points. And he's normally at 1. It could be small, it could be large. It's a very thin book. It's just delivering very
canon.
So the message is, what's coming up ahead, depending on how big you are. You know that at the next chapter in your growth, in your climb, in the next chapter, what's coming down the road towards you. It's going to be a crisis of leadership, or a crisis of direction, or a crisis of management, or a crisis of control. And you can feel that happening already. So if you know what the next problems are going to be, you can actually deal with it now. So that's the kind of the thinking behind it. How do you do it? Well, it's having. I mean, one of my real irritations with agency owners is they are technicians. They're really good at what they do, but they're not always great at running a business. So this is about running a business, which is about where the hell are we going, which is strategy. How on earth can we sell more stuff, which is marketing. Why don't we get on better, which is people, and the finance and leadership that's underneath that. So it's about, if there's one bit that I wanted you to take away from it, it's just putting in place an awesome sales and marketing machine, a business development machine. Way too few agencies systematize and process their whole sales process. So that kind of starts off with where we were talking about 10 minutes ago, which is about what is your proposition? What the heck are you selling, to whom? Why should they buy from you when they can buy from the competition? What makes you different from the rest? I mean,
because I'm a firm believer in this, so we could take this section. So what do you recommend on? All right, you got value propositions, you got your niche. What do you recommend for agencies? Because I agree, too many of them live on referrals.
Well, so I think there's this. So now, if we started to get into the nitty gritty, you can grow organically, which is fine, but that requires another flywheel, which is you deliver awesome work, so people say how awesome you are, so they come to you, so you do awesome work. So there's a flywheel there that people can jump on if they want. But it's the fundamentals. I mean, I went to a conference a while ago, pre-COVID, and there are 35 digital agencies there, and you go up to each one of them and you say, hi, what makes you different from the rest? Oh, we really care. It's all about customer service, and we can do anything for anyone. And there's a picture behind them of people climbing a rope or pulling a rope or climbing a tree. And what makes you different from all the others? Oh, we deliver awesome value for money. And it's like, and that's 32 times. They say exactly the same thing. They all say the same thing. So they don't stand for anything, okay? And then, so that's all about value proposition. What are we selling to whom? But on top of that, they don't have the processes in place from targeting clients all the way through to their proposal. I was with some guys the other day, and they showed me 4 of their pitch proposal PowerPoint presentations. The shortest one was 82 slides, and all of them started with 10 slides talking about us.
Yeah.
We were founded in, I thought this stuff had gone out years ago. And yet this is a reputable agency. And then you have to say, well, it depends on who you're selling to and what you're talking about. But they don't want to know that. They want to know, what are you going to do for me? How much is it going to cost? When am I going to see the results? And whether it's, it's like agencies, when they were working at an agency, they got that memory key and they stole the PowerPoint presentation, and they stole the proposal presentation, and they stole how to talk to clients, and they've just replicated it themselves, like the websites and like the graphics. Their assumption is, well, if everyone else is doing that I can't be wrong. Whereas in fact, from the client's point of view, it is so dull, because all you agencies out there listening, you employ similar people at similar prices, doing similar stuff on similar software and similar hardware, saying similar things to similar people, selling similar products at similar prices to similar, and it's just beige.
How can they be different though? That's the
well, the difference isn't about being the difference isn't about a gimmick. Okay, so let's be clear about it. It's not. Hey, we all bring our dogs to work, or hey, we've all got a ping pong table.
We drink 47,000 cups of coffee.
Yeah, it's not that. But what it is about is largely about our people. What makes us different is our people. But more importantly, it's about what works. Who we want to work with, and who us working with, what we can do for them, and how we can make it work. So I think it's about being really clear. Yeah. We don't work for, I don't know what it could be. We don't work for government agencies. We don't work for cigarette manufacturers. We don't work for charities. We don't work for startups, because we can't really help them. But if you are running a medium-sized business between $10 and $50 million turnover, and it's a service rather than a product you're selling, we are number one for you. We can absolutely help you. So I think this whole conversation keeps going back to 1961. Theodore Levitt wrote an article in the Harvard Business Review called Marketing Myopia, in which he said, marketing has lost its way. You've heard this before, I'm sure. Marketing has lost its way where we're trying to sell stuff to people. It's a myopia. We can't see anything else. And in fact, it's all about the customer. Clap, clap, clap. And he said it in 1961. He said that if you're trying to sell to people, it's all about segmentation. Yeah. Who are you selling to? What's their problem, hurt, need, scratch, want? Yeah. And differentiation. What makes you different from everyone else? And he said, it's not about, he said, it's not about the tactics. There's a diagram in there. He says, it's not about the tactics, which is all we talk about. Well, I think if you did it on TikTok, and then we went into Clubhouse, and then we did it, and then we could do YouTube. It's not about the tactics. It's just so not about the tactics. And you go, oh yeah, I know what it's about. It must be about the strategy. He says, it's not about the strategy. It's not about your clever marketing. It's about the customer and who they are and what they want. And I think we kind of forget, to spend a day walking in the customer's shoes. I was speaking to a guy earlier today who's an agency owner who's written a book. He says, it's amazing. It's selling a product. I never realized that when you're selling a product, that all the stuff that I've been telling people to do, it kind of doesn't all work, does it? And there's an agency in Scotland, and I love them. They're called Atticat. They had a 24-hour challenge to take a business idea from zero, from what are we going to do, to in 24 hours time to launch the business. Everything, right? So business account, business name, website,
excuse me,
the whole thing, just as an experiment, originally for charity and a bit of PR, I guess. And again, they said it was just amazing running a business. The things that you wanted from your agency, when you're the other side, isn't the same. So the agency keeps coming and saying, we're going to do another campaign and we think it'll deliver 1,000 clicks. And it's like, I don't want to know that. I just need more bloody customers. Can you please tell me when the customers are going to arrive and when they're going to be spending money? Well, the thing is, it takes a while for the process to work, and what we're doing is a 5-step process and a 6-stage. It's like, but when's the customers coming? So,
but all those things are true, though, right? Like,
and the heart of it is that people don't buy from you for what you do. They buy from you for what you does for them. People don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I really need a digital agency. They may wake up and say, oh, I really need more customers. How can I do that? And if you're up in front of them, by email or you phone on the right day, then you might get the piece of work. So how do agencies set themselves apart? Because clearly, if everyone did the same thing, everything would just lift. I think it's by, ironically, on the one hand, to the outside world, it's about having a real confidence and expertise. And if you look at the agencies that are really successful and really grown, their work isn't better than anyone else's. But their marketing is. And agency owners, marketing is not a battle of the product or the service. Marketing is a battle for the mind of the customer. If the customer thinks you're better than anyone else, then as far as they're concerned, you are. I love my accountant, but I only ever have one accountant at a time. So I don't know whether my accountant's really better than anyone else, but I think I love them. And why do I think I love them? Because of how they've made me feel about them. So the same thing applies to digital agencies. It's about making that marketing is not a battle of the products, it's a battle for the mind of the customer. The customers believe that we're better. Great agencies are really good at marketing. But then twist that round, and the book should have been renamed In Praise of the Dull, Boring Stuff. Because what the really great agencies do is they're really good at the dull, boring stuff. They're really good
keep the basics.
Measuring processes, systems, timing, pitching work which is profitable, watching the profit, having a schedule of meetings internally, like a flow to it all, having a systematic way of solving problems, and everything that the entrepreneurial bit of me absolutely hates and loathes, they're really, really good at. So, the answer is, to the question you're about to ask, the agency actually needs 2 people running it. It needs the entrepreneurial, visionary, extrovert person who can make people walk over coals behind them and make people buy from them. But it also needs someone who can make the stuff happen, who can just get stuff done. And that formula is absolute killer. So what do the extraordinary agencies do? I think obsessive understanding of their specific customers and the specific niche and how they can really help them. but I think they're also obsessive about systems and processes in order to make sure that that's delivered. And that's hard because it's kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, they're contrary.
Two sides of it,
Yeah.
and getting those two together is dynamite. It's really, really exciting to see that happen.
I think in the differentiation thing is something I've struggled through my entire career, whether it was my own agency or even clients, right? Because you want to say that we're different. I think there's like maybe the 1% at tops 5% in any industry, they actually have true differentiators, right? And I remember it was early in my career, somebody, an old ad guy said, "Hey, look, it's not what you can do, it's what you've done. So you always sell with your work." And it's a pain in the ass.
You're only as good as your last gig, but yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, and I see that where in agencies, you're right. I think there's only so many things that they can say. So it's finding the one that just tastes the best out of the bunch, knowing they're all going to taste bad to some extent, and then moving forward with a lot of the other things that you said. I think too many people either A, get hung up on trying to differentiate too much, or B, they just don't even try at all.
And I think they also say the same stuff. I mean, I did a workshop for the top 50 marketing and sales directors of the top 50 agencies in Europe. Very impressive. And we got them to do two things. We got them to pick up their phones and phone their own phone. So it would go directly to voicemail. The voicemail would say, "Hi, it's whatever my name is." And then they have to say to the voicemail, "Hi, it's Rob here. I run a company called Guider Initiative, and what we do is da 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 da." And it was just, and the reason for that is when they got home, they'd turn on, there'd be a voicemail, they'd hear how shocking they sound. And then we spent some time showing them how to introduce themselves, elevator pitches and stuff, and talking about value propositions. About quantifiable value propositions. And we got them to film each other again using the camera, in pairs. And I walked around listening to them presenting, having told them that your presentation should be a presentation to a 14-year-old max in terms of understanding a language. And they were still totally indecipherable what they were saying. And it was just like, is this really what you say to clients? We are a 3-tiered, multi-platformed, omnipresent agency using didactic pseudo-analysis to justify the metamorphosis of our marketing propositions. It's just garbage comes out of their mouths. And they got better. Don't get me wrong, they got better. We did another course last week. It ended last week for 20 agencies for their B levels, giving them a process for pitching, how to the pitch deck, and they were given up to 15 minutes to pitch. They could practice a pitch that they hadn't used with someone else if they wanted to, and I think 7 of them came back saying, "Actually, I used that process with the client and I won." And it's like, so how many pitches do you normally win? We normally win 3 out of 10. So, and the next one with our magic formula, which wasn't magic, you get 100% hit rate. Now, I know it's not scientific or anything like that, but it's just having all these systems and processes in place, and not the one that you stole from the agency you worked at that might have worked 5 or 10 years ago. So I don't kind of think it's particular. What clients want isn't magic. They want to know, do you understand what my problem is? How much is it going to cost? What am I going to get? So your deck doesn't have to be ludicrously complicated. Yeah, we can put intrigue and we can put other stuff into that and so on and so forth. But I'm the client. Please don't give me 10 pages of your credibility, your creds and what's going on. And please don't, just do you understand me? Do you understand what I want? My problem is I need more customers. Can you help me do that? How much would it cost me?
We co-pitched with an agency a few weeks ago, and one of my team members said the other agency that was pitching on there spoke for I wasn't on this for 40 minutes without any engagement from the client. I can't imagine we're going to win this. It takes the back and forth, the volleying, the engaging. So what are some, in that workshop, maybe it's even in your book, what are some things that you would recommend to agencies to have a better pitch?
So again, we go back to this beigeness. So for instance, Rosemary, who used to work for me, she used to not deliver a proposal, turn up for the meeting and say, I see from the signing in book that I'm number 3 that you've seen today from our competitors. So I've not delivered any kind of proposal to you, and I'm not going to, because you know that the proposal you've got is just been copied and pasted and had your logo put on it. But what you're actually buying is you're buying me. So what is it you want to know?
Risky.
Okay, totally risky. She never lost a pitch.
Wow.
Now, obviously, she pre-qualified to make sure it was okay, and if they had to see a proposal, and I've done exactly the same. I have to admit, I did it for a big piece of work, and I walked in and said da 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 da, and I'd like to understand what you want to know, and it all went quiet, and the guy on the other side of the desk said, "Well, we'd rather see a pitch from you." So I said, "Well, I'm happy to do a pitch, but what is it you'd like me to talk about?" And he said, "We'd rather you did a pitch." I thought, okay. We didn't win that piece of work.
Yeah.
So I think if you just look at all the steps on the way about how we pitch, about the information we gather, and about understanding who the client is, many agencies on another program which we run, which had 50 agencies in the room, we got everyone to bring in a proposal. Yeah. Black out the names and the prices, and we had different tables of different size agencies, but it was so that you could look at everyone else's proposals. Yeah. And you had literally everything from an email saying, further to our conversation, you agree to spend $25,000 a month for the next 2 years for us to help you grow your business, all the way through to 400 pages in a box with straw, with lavender sprinkled over it, and rice paper, and handwritten, and everything in between. And it's very diverse. So I think the process, I'll give you a couple of examples of the process. I think they don't know how to buy. They only buy digital agencies once every 2 or 3 years. We pitch all the time. So to a large extent, we should be in control of the process, if you understand. We should take some ownership about what's going on. However, I think we should ask them what they want. I'm coming to this meeting to pitch to you. Who's going to be at the meeting? And do you want to have the financials in it? Do you want to have the tech in it? Are you happy for an executive summary of 1 page, or do you want the full shenanigans? And ask them what they want. I think, one thing which I think transforms pitch hit rate, if there's one thing to transform pitch hit rate, this is it. This is the secret sauce. 2 days before you're going to pitch to them, phone them up and say, we've done the research. You asked us to come to pitch to you on Friday. It's Wednesday today. On Friday, what I'm going to be saying to you is, this is a proposal for £100,000, and it's going to be purely on Facebook advertising. And our intention is that for the £100,000 that you spend with us, that you will see £300,000 of profit. We've done the calculations. Is that what you were looking for? And if they say yes, that's fantastic. You're on the right track. But if they say, oh, we thought you were going to include YouTube advertising in that, you can go, cool, fine, we can do that. Or if they go, oh, £100,000, we were really thinking about something more in the range of 70 to 75, or only 100. Oh, we got up to 120. That one call, it totally screws up when you're in a tender process, because you've broken the rules of talking to them, yeah. And if it's not in a tender process, it just makes you sure that you're on the right piece. And again, I just think it's just about having a framework which says from the top, how score sheet, out of 20, how committed are we to this piece of work? Is it good for us? Is it profitable? Is it good for our reputation? There's a simple score sheet when it comes in as a lead that we should follow it through, and all the steps should just be itemized that we're going to go through, and just have a clarity about what we're offering that gives them what they want. And I think too many proposals just don't do that. And then so you have, in effect, pre-sales onboarding of clients, post-sales onboarding. I
agree. And you said there was 30,000 agencies in the UK. Was that accurate?
Well, there's kind of 60. It depends on what the measure. 60,000 probably. 60,000 probably.
Do you think there's too many?
That's a great question. They think there are too many.
For sure.
They think there are too many. I think that it makes it very commoditized. So I think, just going back to differentiate, you can differentiate if you specialize in certain things, but there are too many generalists that don't stand for anything, so they stand for nothing. Even if it's not just that we're vegan or we've all got dogs. So although I poo-pooed that earlier on, clearly if I'm vegan, I'm more likely to respond favorably to a vegan agency. I know vegan agencies and gay agencies and black agencies and white agencies and female agencies. So supply and demand says there aren't too many. Supply and demand says it's fine. And I think with low costs of entry, I think makes it really difficult. So I think the problem is more that the industry hasn't taken a hold of itself and created some kind of method to help the client. So if you're going to a hotel, there's some kind of starring system, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, and maybe sometimes that's run by the hotel organization or the local council, whatever it is. So if you're going to a 4-star hotel, to expect that it's going to cost you $200 and the food could be really nice and you're going to get a decent sized bed. If you go to 2-star, it's going to cost you $50 and you're going to get a lousy bed and you're probably going to have a bedroom over
I've been saying this for years. Standardization. A standardization.
Yeah. And that's I think that would be good. That'd be good so that people knew what they're buying. And I think part of the problem is there are too many cowboys, too many people who are able to get away with shoddy work or below average work, and that damages the whole industry. So yeah, I do think there are too many. I do think there are too many agencies, but I think it shakes itself out. Because you go, as I'm sure you see agencies that just. I was talking to an agency recently, and it's like, our staff bills $190,000 a month. $190,000 a month. Cool. What were your sales last month? 150,000. Okay. Should we do some really basic maths here? Really basic maths. And it's just not sustainable. And the agency needs to be doing at least double what it's doing. So you've and I would argue that nature is brutally honest. So agencies that fail to acquire the right customers, I wouldn't say deserve, because that sounds really cruel.
No, I think it is, and that's okay. It's just Darwinian.
Yeah, I mean, I said I got 3 days worth of hate mail on LinkedIn when I said that COVID is okay because it'll sort out the good from the bad agencies, and the bad agencies that die. This is what I should have said.
I would have liked that most.
I said they deserve to die because they're not a decent agency.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish it on anyone. You know, I've lost a business. We've all lost businesses. I wouldn't wish losing a business on anyone. But you know, when the tide comes down, we can see who exactly is wearing swimming trunks and who isn't. And I think that's what happened. I think it was very, very nice and very, very cozy pre-COVID. And COVID really challenged us, and it sorted out the efficient agencies that had deep pockets because they'd been profitable, and they'd been profitable because they were charging the right prices and doing good work, which meant that they got more work because of their reputation, which meant they had deep pockets, versus the ones which were jumping from project to project and never really managed to charge the right prices. So you kind of get this negative, and because they couldn't charge the right prices, they weren't employing the best people, so they couldn't do the best work, you know. So, and at the heart of that is that the staff that you pay more to don't actually do any better work often, but they're probably better with the clients, better saying to the clients, oh, we're doing this because you'll find as a result of us, we'll be able to do this. Would you like us to cross-sell another product or service? Would you like us to upsell? So actually doing the work isn't the issue. It's about those kind of client relationships.
Yeah.
And I think good agencies have this kind of flywheel going on where they are profitable because they do good work, so they can employ good people, so they can do more good work, and they can sell in more good work, and so they can employ more good people. And they kind of get into that virtuous cycle.
I think it's getting there, which is the difficult part. And speaking of that, outside of COVID, and I'm sure agencies breaking a lot of golden rules, what would you say most agencies are doing wrong today?
I think waiting for the phone to ring. I mean, if I hear someone else say to me, you know, what's your marketing strategy? We wait for the phone to ring, because it always does.
You actually meet people say that?
Yeah. Hope is not a method.
It's
still there. Yeah, hope is not a method.
I mean, lie to me. I mean, give me something.
Yeah. Hope is not a method.
Yeah.
So I see some of that going on. I see a lack of decisiveness and clarity going on, like if, when, maybe, when the next, and you end up saying, can we just be honest about this? If you don't get that next big client that you're talking about, how long have you got? What do you mean? Well, if we don't get another piece of work, when do you have to close the doors? Well, I don't think we want to close the doors. Now, I'm not saying whether you want to close the doors or not, but, you know, if we look at these numbers, you know, a shark needs to be moving forward and to breathe, and let's say we've got a dead shark on our hands. And I think that what they're doing wrong is they're not spending enough time on sales and marketing. They're not spending enough time making sure what goes out the door is going out the door profitably. They're not charging enough. Haven't got enough bottle to ask for the right price. So they kind of get into this nervousness trap of, it's kind of an imposter syndrome stuff. I'm not very good. The only way I can win work is by undercutting everyone else. And they don't realize that that's the most dumb thing to do. Of all the dumb things they could do, reducing your prices is really the very dumbest. Because they don't kind of understand how the maths works. You know, once you show them the maths of putting prices up, they go, oh, now I understand why you put prices up.
Now, what about agencies doing things that are right? Like, what are the best agencies doing?
Oh, I think the agencies doing things right have brilliant systems and processes in place. So that in praise of the dull, boring stuff. They are clear about what they offer to whom and why people buy it. And they have a brilliant sales and marketing machine. And of course, there's a wonderful irony that the people who are best at sales and marketing often spend the least amount of money on it, because their reputation is such a positive feed into what's going on. So, you know, if you take two agencies and one's got doing shoddy work and not very good, they're desperate to grow the business, they might be spending, you know, 10% of budget on sales and marketing, but the sales and marketing is probably like everything else they do, that it's a bit broken and a bit ramshackle. Whereas a really effective agency that's doing really great work and has nailed how to do sales marketing might only be spending like 3 or 4% of their budget, but it's, bang for the buck. They're all over it. So it's, funnily enough, this conversation seems to be a lot about flywheels. But so the really great agencies, awesome at sales and marketing, one, awesome at strategy, not awesome at that backroom stuff of systems and processes. And all the research says that really great businesses are good at strategy. Where the hell are we going? Marketing. Why can't we sell more stuff in teams? So that's kind of that's my piece.
Okay, all right, that works. And then where would you say? Actually, the next best question is there anything we haven't covered today that the world should know, or that we should cover based on your expertise?
Put up your prices.
Or where would prices be?
Bloody prices, more than they are now. Look, let's just a quick lesson in math. You're not an accountant, are you? No, I'm
accounting in college, yeah.
Okay, I went to school to become an accountant.
No, not to become an accountant. It was just required for yeah.
Okay, let's just do the math really. So you sell for 10, you buy for 7, the profit is 3, 30%. So far, so good, right?
All right, yeah, got it.
You put your prices up by 10%. So your price goes from 10 to 11. Cool. What's going to happen? I'm going to ask you the question, direct question. You're in the spotlight now. If I put my prices up, what's going to happen to my business?
You're going to make more money.
Right. So 1, you're going to make more money. And 2, what else is going to happen to my customers?
They're going to spend more money.
Yeah, but not all of them. So what happens is if I put my prices up, we're going to lose what I call the pond life and scum who are buying on price, okay? Mm-hmm. But we're going to keep the customers who recognize the value of what we do. Mm-hmm. More importantly, we can afford to lose with this maths, mm-hmm. from 10 to 11, 10% price increase, we can afford to lose 25% of our customers and we still get the same amount of money in our pocket. More importantly, we were working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We've lost 25% of our customers, so we only need to be working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We spend Friday sorting out our systems and processes or showing our existing clients more love, okay? So Robert Craven says, if you put your prices up, you put a really strong message out to the market, you stop feeling like a prostitute, you can do the work properly because you've got more margin, you can work less time, everyone's happy. Now, 90% of the listeners and watchers are going to be saying, you don't understand what it's like to be in New Mexico, Brooklyn, Czechoslovakia, it doesn't really matter, Ukraine, Newcastle, there's always somewhere that the market's different here. You have to put your prices down in order to win the work. So we go, okay, calm down. Let's just go through this. What does this mean? You were charging 10, buying for 7, profit 3. You reduce your prices by 10% because you want to win more business because it's all about market share. A lousy idea left over from the 50s and 60s business schools, but we won't go down that route. As a consequence of putting down your prices, firstly, you attract all the pond life and scum who want the cheapest stuff, who will never be your ambassadors, who will always phone you on a Sunday morning saying it's not working, they always want more, it's never good enough. And more importantly, they won't recommend you to anyone else because they're not the sorts of people who are going to share their good deals with people. But the math tells you that if you reduce your price from 10 to 9, yeah, you now need to be selling 50%. You need to be selling 50% more stuff just to have the same amount of money in your back pocket. If you don't sell 50% more stuff, you're losing money. So you were working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You have to sell 50% more stuff. So you have to do 50% more work. Okay. So therefore you're now working Saturday, Sunday, and next Monday morning in order to service the pond life and scum. Yeah. Who are the, and now you're just going mad because you've got no free time. So if you can put up, number one, if you can put up your prices, if you can't put up your prices, decrease your direct costs. If you can't decrease your direct costs, fix your underperforming people, customers, products and services, and so on and so forth. That's the kind of the route. And then, only then do you put your foot down on marketing, because there's no point selling. If the financial model's broken, so you've got to fix the financial model. How do you fix the financial model? Quick fix: put up your prices.
I like brilliance and its simplicity. Now, Richard Branson wrote the foreword to your book, right?
He wrote the foreword to Kickstart Your Business and Customer is King. So those were slightly more generalist books, but you could see where. So Kickstart Your Business was the first album, with 10 years of stuff pushed into it. Every page is like double espresso. and now the last one was a 96 pages. I've kind of finally gone from 30 pages down to 90 pages.
So it went from espresso to tea, huh?
It's still double espresso, but I think it's just recognizing that you just want to get across some big ideas rather than everything you've ever thought about ever.
Got it. So what's your relationship with him? Are you going to be taking the trip on his next galactic cruise?
I for some reason the invitation hasn't come through. I've been waiting for him or Elon to send me stuff, but I don't know, for some reason they seem to have lost that, and I'm not paying to go on. So and also I do actually think there might be better things to spend money on right now. I'm not sure whether I'm quite in the league of
cool, 200 grand, get your little seat, cruise up for a little bit, float on back. No,
it's an experience I'd like, but I'm not that desperate about it.
All right. Well, I want to give you this space where you can plug anything that you would like to plug, Robert. Appreciate you being here.
Right. Well, I'd love to talk to people about our mastermind groups, and I'd love to talk to people about our member hub. We've got a member hub, which is resources, how-to, videos, interviews like this. It's like a subscription-only basis. So I'd love to plug those two. I'm going to plug anything. And the places to go to are Guider, GYDA, Guider Member Hub, or Guider Initiative. GYDA is for Guider. So we're British. We don't like plugging. We think people should be able to guess what we want them to do. So we don't go down this, you've got to buy from me, it's the best 5 ways to triple your profit in the next 10 days or your money back. So that's what you just...
You're pretty good at it.
Was the British version, which is, I'm sure you can guess what you're thinking about. So we're laid back about it.
Awesome. Really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute blast, actually. I've really enjoyed it. A good, well-rounded conversation. I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
Absolutely. Hope you enjoyed our episode. Please subscribe and review wherever you can. And if you would like to join the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email at jon@digitalmastermind.com or visit us at digitalmastermind.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye now.